Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. Just making sure everything is set up all right before we get started. You should see a poll. If it might be behind something on your desktop, you might need to minimize some things, but there's two questions that we have that we're just trying to get a benchmark before we start the presentation today regarding how you're currently set up to use Google Analytics and how often you're using it. As well as what types of metrics that you are checking. So if you wouldn't mind just voting there, that will help us tailor the presentation to make sure we make the best use of everybody's time. And also, if somebody wouldn't mind just putting either in a chat box or in the Q&A box, if they can hear me, that would be great. I just want to make sure the audio is working nicely and that everyone can hear me loud and clear. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone, for letting me know you can hear me. So we'll get started here in just a few minutes. So go ahead and complete those polls, and we'll get started soon. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, so much. And thank you again for joining us today. Today, we're going to be talking, as you can see, about Google Analytics for financial advisors, which metrics matter most. And what we mean by that is which ones should you be monitoring and regularly checking to make sure that your website and other marketing initiatives are working effectively to promote your business. So to get started, I'll just share some of the results from the poll that I know a couple people are still filling out. Go ahead. The first question was, do you currently track your website using Google Analytics? A whopping quarter of you do not. And another 20% have it installed but don't use it. So we have a lot of folks joining us today who don't have that good of a familiarity. Only about 10% use it weekly or more. And then about a third use it once a quarter, and another 10% use it once a month or so. So we will tailor the conversation to be more basic to intermediary. For those of you that are looking for a more advanced presentation, I plan to give one again either next month or the month after. So as we go through this webinar, if there's specific questions that you would like to learn more on how to answer as you're going through your analytics, keep those and let us know, and we can make sure to include them in a follow-up webinar presentation. And then the question, which metrics do you most often monitor? The total number of site visitors, no surprise there, is the top answer, with 85% of you regularly checking that. And then the rest of them are everywhere between 15 and 30% people are looking at the other metrics. Surprisingly, the top pages visited is not that high of a percentage of what people are checking, which I think is probably because many of you don't know how to check it. So I will make sure to show you how to do that today, since that is a key metric that you'll want to monitor as you move forward. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And I will just launch this slideshow. Okay, great. So just a little bit about me for those of you who are not affiliated with 20over10, a current client of ours. My name is Samantha Russell. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at 20over10. And I have used Google Analytics regularly for probably 5 years now. and by regularly, I mean almost every day. We use it both at 20 over 10 to monitor our own marketing initiatives and how we're performing, as well as helping our own clients understand how their websites are performing. So I have a lot of background and experience in it, and it continues to change over time. So I'm excited to share that knowledge with you. One thing just to keep in mind as we go through the presentation today, if you do have any questions, please go ahead and enter them into the questions panel at any time. I will answer them all at the end, just since this presentation builds on itself as we go through, but I know what it's like to keep a question for the end. It can be hard to remember. So feel free to go ahead and put it in there as you think of it. So our agenda today is to first just talk about the metrics and the data that Google Analytics reports. There's over 10,000 metrics. We won't go through all 10,000 on this beautiful summer afternoon, but we'll go through the most important ones. And we'll look at, which ones are the most important and why, which is crucial. And then the number 3 is the thing that everybody I talk to wants to know. Well, how do I compare, right? We always like to compare ourselves to others. How does my site perform next to somebody else's? That's really the benchmark. So I'm going to share those statistics and averages for you today. Just please keep in mind as we go through that so many different factors can affect how your site is performing, whether you're adding original content and blogging often, whether your site is brand new, because domain history can affect how often you come up in search results. The type of structure of your site. So those of you that have a single page scrolling site are going to see much different metrics than those of you who have a more standard multi-page site. So there's lots of things that go into it. If you have specific questions about your numbers, if your numbers seem really off compared to what we're talking about today, I'll have my contact information at the end. Feel free to reach out. We can set up a separate Google Analytics consultation for you and dive into it deeper. And then the last thing we'll talk about is, as you're looking at the data, this is the most important, obviously, what changes should you make based on what you're seeing? So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but in terms of why you should use Google Analytics, it is completely free. So you don't have to pay for it, and it is the best marketing metric tool that you can use to monitor your website. So, whether you have it installed or not currently, it is free to use. You should absolutely go and sign up for it if you don't have it already. If you don't know how to add it to your own website, contact whoever helps you run your website and they can help you, or just do a Google search on it. There's lots of how-tos. It's really easy to install. And it's really crucial if you're going to make any further decisions on what different changes or edits you're going to make to your website. You don't want to be doing that blind just because you have a gut feeling or some other expert tells you this is what you should do. You really want to have the data to back it up. So Google Analytics gives us that data so that when we're making changes and decisions, we're not doing it blind. We're doing it backed by the facts. So again, not going to spend too much time on this, but if you have Google Analytics installed, you just go to Google Analytics, their main website there, and then you're going to want to choose the Google Analytics selection here to log in. Once you log in, the main page you're going to see, if you have multiple sites, will look like this. So if you have either a website and then a blog that's at a separate domain, or maybe you have 2 websites, you're going to see this page first, and you first want to select the correct website that you want to view. If you don't have more than one website or blog being tracked, then it'll automatically pop you into this page here, to the dashboard, since you only have one. So those are the 2 options. Again, if you land on this page first and you weren't sure what to do, you just want to select the domain that you want to review for that day. So let's get into it. This is what you're going to see when you first log in, and this is called the dashboard, and it's made up of a few key main components, which I'll highlight for you here. So on the left-hand side, we have all of these various, what Google calls reports. So each one of these is a tab that can be selected, and a list of other tabs will pop up there for you to dive deeper and drill down. On the upper right-hand side is a date range. This is really important and crucial. Google will default to the last 30 days, but oftentimes you'll want to change that date range to select a different date range to compare something that you're doing. So perhaps you started blogging 3 months ago and you want to look at your site traffic for the first month of blogging versus the 3rd month. You can do a compare date range. or perhaps you want to look at how your site performed before you were blogging till now. So the date range is going to be really crucial. Whenever you're looking at the metrics on your site, make sure that you have the proper date range selected up there in the upper right. So then in this main section here, we're going to see a graph, and we can separate it by hour, day, week, or month to get these data points. So if we're on day, each one of these data points is going to be a different day. If we were on hourly, each one will be an hour. If we're on a week, it'll be a different week. You get the idea. So just expanding on this section down here, because this is really key. If we zoom in on this part, now what we're going to see is, in addition to these data points, we're going to get these main metrics here that are really the backbone of your Google Analytics reporting. So I'm going to go into what each one means, as well as what an average advisor would typically see for you. I've also listed out those averages on this secondary page, and we'll be emailing this recording to everyone after the session is over. So you'll be able to look back and compare your own data. You don't have to furiously write down the stats I'm going to give you. So the first one we want to look at is session. So again, for the date range that we've selected, a session is a defined group of interactions that one user, so just one person, is taking within a given time frame. So that date range we've selected. Google defaults the time range to 30 minutes. You can always change it. I would highly suggest just leaving it at the default. So basically what it means is whatever a user would do on your website before they're leaving in that 30 minutes equals one session. So what you'll see then is you can have, which users is right next to it, you can have a lot less users than you do sessions. And that's just because one user can have multiple sessions. So a session is that defined time frame within 30 minutes. The users is the total number of actual individual people or IP addresses that are coming to your site. The page view, which is next, again, is going to be even higher because it's the total number of pages within your website that someone is viewing. So if you have a lot of pages to your site, or if you're a prolific blogger, each one of those blog posts is going to be its own web page. You're going to have a lot more page views than you do users or sessions. The total number of pages per session is simply how many pages on average does an individual visit in a session while on your website. And then the average session duration is the time that they're spending in one of those sessions. The bounce rate is something people often are curious about and can get really confused. All the bounce rate is if somebody comes to your site, and it can be any page on your site. They can come to your home page. They could come to your team bio page from maybe a link from, NAPFA's Find an Advisor or Guidevine. Whatever page they're entering on, they leave on that same page without clicking any other section of your website. So it's an entry and an exit from the same page of your website without visiting any other pages. So it's a single page view. So a lot of people hear bounce rate and they're really curious of what a healthy bounce rate is. We're going to get into that. It's really going to depend as well, though, on your site setup. So for any of you out there listening who have what we call a single page scrolling site, where somebody can keep scrolling and see all the pages of your website without ever needing to click anything, your bounce rate by definition is going to be higher, right? Because they don't actually have to click anything to view all of those pages. So you really want to keep that in mind when you're looking at your own bounce rate. And then the percentage of new sessions is just how many of these visitors are new for that date range, have never been to your website before, versus returning. So let's talk about what the average advisor is seeing. So for total number of users, the average we're seeing is about 100 to 200 a month. And by the way, these numbers are coming for the average advisors from what we see internally here at 20/10, and also some of what we've benchmarked with a few other outside marketing consultants we work with. So this isn't for every advisor on the planet. These are the ones that we have access to monitoring here at 20/10. And so they're seeing about 100 to 200 visitors a month. The bounce rate, this is, I kind of wanted to go beyond the average and talk about what is good versus not good. So if you have a bounce rate really under 40%, that's excellent by far. If your bounce rate is between 41 to 55, that's roughly average. And then 56 to 75% is higher than average. I was really tempted to just group that 41 to 75 all together and say it's average, but I know people like to kind of see it broken out even further. So, if you get higher than 75%, you really do need to say, okay, this might be a red flag. Let's analyze what's going on and how I can improve it. Again, if you have a single page scrolling site and you're feeding your latest blog posts directly into your homepage, different factors can affect it. You may not need to make any changes. So you really need to look at the specifics of your own site. But regardless, if you see that your site has over 75% bounce rate, it is something you'd want to pay attention to. The average session duration for most of the advisors that we see out there is 1.3 to 2 minutes, 2 minutes being really good. We're finding that when we talk to some other advisors who are coming to work with us from other website providers, or who done their own website on their own, or maybe they never had a really great design or captivating calls to action, that they're seeing less than a minute. So it really depends on how your site, again, is set up. The total number of pages per session we're seeing is typically under 2. So this is really crucial as you think about your website and where people are entering. And I'm going to show you how you can find, the main pages they're entering your site from. But if your homepage is that main site most people are entering on, and your homepage does not contain key information that you want any potential client to know, you've got to change that up, because people are not going to go and click on every page of your website. The numbers show they're going to visit your homepage and then maybe go to your about or your team page. That's usually the second most popular. And if it's not on one of those 2 pages, you're losing the opportunity to communicate that message to them. And then percentage of new sessions, we typically see 40 to 55% of of sessions being new. And again, this number is going to depend a lot on the own goals that you have for your marketing. So if your goal is really to drive new prospects and you don't even have, let's say, a client portal on your site, you're not actively sending your clients to your website, you would expect that percentage of new sessions to be even higher than that. For folks who blog regularly and are really prolific bloggers, they typically see that percentage of new sessions being a lot higher as well, because random people who've never heard of them, who aren't being referred to them, are going to be doing searches for keywords or phrases and coming across their blog posts and finding their websites that way. So the percentage of new sessions is typically much higher for those who are much more prolific bloggers. So keep all of these in mind as we go through the metrics today, and kind of benchmark against your own metrics and think about what that means for your own website. So continuing our tour, you remember I showed this was the main panel on the left-hand side of the Google Analytics dashboard when you first log in. So we're going to focus on 4 of these today: real-time, audience, acquisition, and behavior. So these 4 are really the 4 workhorses of your Google Analytics. And the real-time, not even as often, but it is a cool feature, so I'm going to show that to you. But especially the audience, acquisition, and behavior, you're going to want to pay attention to those the most. And just think of it as when, who, how, and what in order of how they're structured. So real time is going to tell us when somebody is on your site. Audience is going to tell us who's on your site. Acquisition is going to tell us how they found your site. And behavior is going to tell us what they are doing once they get there. So the real time button, if you ever click on it at any point, you will actually see how many people are on your website at that particular time. And also it will show you which pages they're actively on and where in the country they are located. So what I really love about this is, let's say you get featured in a CNBC article and there's a link back to your website, or you share an article on a guest post on a blog, or maybe you're going to go and present at the Chamber of Commerce. You can actually keep track of how effective in the moment some of those marketing initiatives are through Google Analytics. So it's a neat little feature. Again, you're not going to be using it, every single day or anything like that, but in real time, it can be really gratifying to see how things are paying off. So if we move down again from the real-time tab to the audience tab. This is going to be that main tab again that you're going to land on when you pop into the dashboard, and it's going to default to just go to the overview page that we initially started on that I showed you all. But there's a lot of other features that you can see under this tab. So if we were to then click on audience, you see all of these other subsequent tabs open up, right? So some of the main ones that people will pay attention to are the geographic location, so you can see where someone's located. The behavior is like that new versus returning we talked about. Technology, it will show you which browsers or computer types people are on. Mobile will show you if people are using tablets or mobile devices to find you. So if you don't have a mobile responsive site and you wonder how badly am I being hurt by this, check your analytics to see if 50% of visitors are coming from mobile and you don't have a mobile responsive site. That's really, really bad. So you need to get that fixed ASAP. So one of the main ones that I pay attention to, and I tell all of our advisor clients to pay attention to, is the geo tab. So when you click on geo and then you click location, you're going to see this map come up. And it's really cool. It's completely interactive. You can click on any section of the map to drill down even further. And it's going to show you all of those same metrics that we talked about before. So sessions, new sessions, bounce rate, pages per session, average session duration, against the individual states, or if you drill down even further, cities. So if we were in the live Google Analytics dashboard, this would be at the top of the page, and then as you scroll down, you would get to this. So what we can see here is a list of the top 10 states where visitors are coming from. And don't think, by the way, that they're only showing you 10 results. At the bottom right-hand side here, you can tab to all of your results. A lot of times people miss that. So just make sure you look at all of them. And you can also show as many rows per page as you like. But what's really great is we can start to see how we're performing in each of these locations. So for this particular example, this is a client of ours that has got 2 offices, one in Annapolis, Maryland, and one in Sarasota, Florida. So what's really great and helps justify that what we're doing is correct on their website, they don't have 2 websites, they just have one website that lists both locations, is that their top 2 search engine results are for Maryland and Florida. So that right there helps us to know we're on the right track. And then if we go, we can look at, okay, how many sessions did they have for each of those states? How many of those sessions were new users? What was the bounce rate? How many pages per session did they see? What was their average session duration? And we can look at all of those metrics for each individual state. What's even more fun is if you click on one state, it will drill down to that state by city. So when we click on Florida, a map is going to come up here. I should mention, I guess, anytime in Google Analytics in general, you see a result that is blue and you hover over it, you can click on it. That's just a hyperlink. That means you can drill down for more information. So whenever you see those blue results, it means you can click on it and get even further information. So in this example, we've clicked Florida. And the next page, we're going to see a map at the top of the page that gives us a really nice visual representation of where that traffic is coming from. So if you recall, I said they were based in Annapolis and Sarasota. So luckily, the biggest bubble isn't down in Key West or Jacksonville. It's hovering over there in the Gulf where we know Tampa and Sarasota are located. So that just visually is going to help reinforce that we're doing the right thing. And then if we scroll down on that page underneath the map, we're going to be able to dive down into all of the individual cities within the state of Florida that this advisor's traffic is coming from. So we can look at the Gulf states, North Sarasota. And so you might think, okay, well, the Gulf Gate Estates is performing best, right? Because we have the most number of sessions from there. But this is why it's really important to look. If you see here, there's actually only 6 new users of those 48 sessions. So somebody from the Gulf Gate Estates was really interested in this advisor and had presumably been to their website many, many times. So keep that in mind as you're looking at the data. And so the fact that there's a 91% bounce rate isn't that surprising, because one person going back to that site over and over again they might be looking for a client portal, they might be reading the same piece of information. So we're going to expect to see a higher bounce rate there. So if we're looking just at what would be a good quality, this is really exciting to see that here in Bradenton, we had 9 sessions, 6 of them were new users. The bounce rate was 77%. By the way, I should mention, this advisor's bounce rate is higher than normal because they do have one of those single page scrolling sites I was mentioning. So you'd never have to click anywhere in the site to get to all the pages. You can just keep scrolling to see it. So keeping that in mind, that 77% bounce rate is really good. 1.3 sessions or pages per session are being visited, and people are spending 2 minutes, 30 seconds on average on that page in Bradenton. So we would say that those Bradenton visitors, those are some really high quality visitors. So again, drilling down, you can get really specific and granular. If you have a business where you're located in Cleveland, Ohio, and when we go back and we look at those states, and Ohio's not even in your top 10, your SEO really needs to be revamped. I know a lot of advisors these days say, well, I have a virtual practice, I can have clients anywhere, but your physical location is still a really good indicator for your website's performance and SEO. So if wherever you are located in that state, that should be either your top or second result in your Google Analytics, or it means your site was either optimized for another state or just isn't performing well at all. So really keep that in mind as you're looking through these geographic locations. So now we can get even more granular, which is really fun. So let's say you want to know, well, of those Gulfgate estate visitors, how did those 6 people find my website? Where were they coming from? How did that traffic get there? So you can actually select Gulfgate Estates. Remember, you can click on it because it's blue and it's hyperlinked. And then at the top of the page here, we can select what's called secondary dimension. And secondary dimension allows us to cross-reference any 2 metrics in Google we want, in Google Analytics. So we can say, for those Gulfgate estate visitors, how did they find my website? So we would come down here and we would choose source medium. And now what we're going to see is there was 4 different ways that those 6 visitors found us. 3 found us through our monthly blog email list. 1, and I'm just getting these numbers from right here, by the way. 1 directly went to our website, xyzplanning.com. 1 did a Google search and found us through organic search results. So we don't have any paid Google ads. They just did, a search for Sarasota Financial Planner and found our result came up in Google and they clicked on it. And then 1 person found us through the Find an Advisor feature on NAPFA that we're listed on. So you can really get granular to find out in any specific location how people are finding you. You also are able to do this on a state level or even a national level. So, if you want to just see how many people are finding you from NAPFA, I'll show you how to do that. But this is how you can cross-reference 2 different metrics to give you some really good information to see how your website is performing. So a subsequent question we always get from this is, okay, that's great, but I'm not doing well on local, so how can I fix it? So even though this isn't specific to Google Analytics, I know we get this question a lot, so I wanted to put it in here for you. If you have not signed up your business on what's called Google My Business, you want to go there right now. It's google.com/business. It's free. You set it up, and as long as you follow some of these main points, you're going to see a boost in your local search results if you haven't done this already. So you create the page, want to make sure you have at least 6 high resolution photos, your hours of operation, and accurate address and map information. Make sure that your address is listed exactly in Google Business as it is on your website. So if you spell out suite, S-U-I-T-E, on your website, it should be spelled out in your Google My Business listing. If you do STE period in one, you should do it in the other, because when they're not exact, Google can't match them as easily and your rankings will suffer. So make sure you pay attention to that too. And if you have multiple locations, you want to have individual landing pages for Google My Business. So you can see in this one, they can be located in Annapolis and Sarasota, but this one is specific to the Annapolis location. And make sure your website explicitly states where you are located as well. And then the last thing is just making sure you have a Google map embedded on your website. Okay, so going back to Google Analytics, now that you know how to fix up your search results. And again, I don't want you guys to be frantically taking notes. These will all be included in the slides, so you can make sure you follow these steps to improve your own rankings. So now we're going to move on to that acquisition tab. So if you remember, audience was the first one we talked about after real time. Now acquisition is next. And again, acquisition is how people are finding your website. So the audience is who is visiting, where are they coming from, all of those things. The acquisition tab is how users are finding you. So there's typically going to be 5 main buckets or categories. You can see them listed here. We have direct, referral, email, organic search, and social. And again, we're going to be able to click on any of these to get even more information. So let's walk through what each of these means. Direct is simply somebody going into their browser or their search bar and typing your exact domain name. So xyzplanning.com, 20over10.com, nytimes.com. That's going to count as a direct hit to your website. Referral is anytime your site or any page of your site is linked to from another website, not including social media. So if you're listed, as we saw in that other example, on NAPFA's Find an Advisor, if you're on Guidefind, if you get featured in a local newspaper article and they link back to your website or blog, if you're located on the Chamber of Commerce and somebody links back to your blog, anytime anybody clicks to your website from another web page, it's going to count as a referral. Email is pretty straightforward. They're opening up your site from an email. Organic search is anytime somebody does a search online and your business comes up in the results, and from that, they click on your actual result. So it's not saying how many times you're in the results. It's saying that they actually clicked your result from the list of results. So if I search Cleveland, Ohio financial advisors and xyzplanning.com is listed in the results and I click on it, that's going to count as an organic search. Social is pretty straightforward again. People finding you on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, any of those places that link back to your website. So if we dive down deeper into each of these, starting with referrals, since direct is pretty straightforward. If you click on that referral, again, you can see a list of results, and this might be what yours look like. So again, any of those third-party sites. So for instance, if you're, paying to be on a listing, or maybe you have a membership in an organization and they have a Find an Advisor lookup feature and you want to know, well, am I really getting, visitors from this? You can not only see how many people are finding you for that date range. So, okay, for the last month, 57 sessions came from NAPFA's Find an Advisor. We can also see the quality of those visits. So on average, they visited 1.5 pages and they were on my website for almost 2 minutes. Those metrics are good. So those are really good, high quality visitors. So this is a great resource when you go into referral and then cross-reference against some of these other metrics to be able to see not only where that traffic is coming from, but is it high quality traffic and does it justify the marketing you're doing? So now under that acquisition tab, if we go to social, we can, oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. I'm clicking on that. Sorry, organic search. So if you're on, I saw social was highlighted over here. If you're on the organic search and you want to learn more, you could see a list like this. So the first thing you're going to notice is, and I'm sure so many of you have seen this and been really frustrated, the number one result is going to say not provided. I'm going to show you a trick for how to find out what those search terms are. The reason that this happens is that Google cloaks a lot of the results based on users' preferences and privacy, and it just can't make the data come into Google Analytics. But if you have Google Search Console set up, you can have a workaround for that. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But regardless, you can still see some other search terms that people are putting in there to find your website. So a lot of people are going to want to know, okay, how do I unlock those not provided? What search terms are people, going to Google and typing in and then landing on my website from? So here's some different ways that you can discover those keywords, but the top one is called Google Search Console. So if you haven't already registered your site on Search Console, you want to make sure that you do. You have to own the domain, you set it up. It's pretty simple instructions. And then once you've done that, you can go to that website that you own. So you can see here, the one we're looking at is for our 20 over 10 blog. So blog.20over10.com. And I can actually unlock what search terms are driving people to the 20 over 10 blog for the last week. So we can see that search terms like best financial advisor websites, financial advisor websites, financial planning websites, how to start a financial planning business, top financial advisor websites. We see a theme here, right? But all different variations of those terms. So we want to make sure that those different variations of the same search queries are listed in the content on our page. And if maybe there's a search term that's listed all the way down at number 50 that we wish we were ranking higher from, we would go back to our website content and edit it to include that search term more. So let's say you're a financial planner, but you also really want to rank high for investment management, Cleveland, Ohio. And you see in your Search Console results that you're not, coming up at all for those search terms. You would want to go back to your website and edit your content to include investment management, investment manager, the different variations, so that you're going to start coming up for that search term. So Google Search Console, again, is completely free. To get to this page, you just go to Search Console, choose your website that you want to track, and then under Search Traffic, I've selected Search Analytics. Just to show you really quickly here, you want to always make sure at the top here that you've selected clicks, impressions, CTR, and positions. And what this is going to show you is for any result, the impressions is how many times, if somebody searched best financial advisor websites, how many times did 20 over 10 come up in the results? So 334. Of that, 81 people who saw, so of the 334 people who saw us in the results, 81 clicked on our result. So that gives us a click-through rate of 24%. And we were 1.1 in the position. So if you're in the top page on Google, you'd be minus the ads in like the top 10 or so positions. That's really, really good for any search term. And if you have a click-through rate, anything over 10% is actually really phenomenal as well. So keep that in mind as you're looking at these data points. So again, this is how you're going to unlock those not provided list of organic search terms that Google Analytics will show, so that you can really see how people are finding you when they're just doing a search online. And to take it one step further, if you want to know more information about who is linking to your site in an easier to read way than what Google Analytics provides, under Search Console, if you see here, so we're on the Search Analytics page. If you go to the next tab underneath, which is called Links to Your Site, it'll actually give you a full list of all the third-party websites that link to your website. And you can download either the whole table or the latest links to see, where people are referencing you online. So if you're a really prolific blogger, you might not even realize that your blog has been referenced or your website has been linked to by these other people. The reason that this is even better than what Google provides is Google's only going to show us the amount of traffic that clicked to our website from those links. The Google Search Console is going to show us anytime a link is even established. So even if nobody ever clicked to our website from NASDAQ.com, we can see that they've linked to us 3 times. So that's really important to help us gauge how often we're being linked to by third-party sites, because that, again, is going to really make a big difference in our SEO. So now we'll talk about social. So we talked about, we started with direct, and then we talked about referral, organic search. So now we're going to talk about social. So this is just going to show you simply which social networks are sending traffic to your website. You really want to examine each one separately. So again, you can click on any of those blue links to get a full report for each individual metric. So if we first, select whichever metric it is, and then you can, under the secondary dimension, click landing page. This is going to show us from, for instance, Twitter, which pages of our blog did people come to. So we can see that this blog post that we did all about e-money, was one of the top ones. Then a webinar we were giving on the 4 types of content your website needs. Prospecting on LinkedIn, the 10 best sites for free stock photos. So you can see from each of these different social networks where that traffic is coming to. You can also in that social channel just do a quick evaluation for any given month or quarter or 6 months of what's performing best. So again, you can look at the total number of sessions as well as the bounce rate, the number of new users. So, for instance, on LinkedIn, we not only don't have that many sessions, but the total number of new users is very small. Whereas on Twitter, we have a lot of sessions, 36 new users. Facebook, a lot of sessions and a lot of new users. So you can evaluate which one is really working best for your business, which social network. And for a lot of folks, they don't have time to be on 7 different social networks. So this can be really impactful to help you, figure out where to spend the most time. Okay, so the last tab that I want to talk about is behavior. So this is giving us insight into what users are doing once they land on your site. So if you're in the behavior tab here, on the left-hand side, there's a couple tabs I want to focus on. The 2 main ones being the behavior flow and the site content. So the behavior flow is really interesting because it shows us a visual representation of how people are navigating through our site and where they're dropping off. So what is the most common path that people are going to take and where are they exiting your site? So we can see, by the way, anytime you just see a backslash, that just means your home page or your main URL. So if you're xyzplanning.com, that backslash means they're just landing straight on your homepage. And we can see if you hover over any of the different sections, it will give you the full percentages of how many people are dropping off. So for this example, they had just in their initial interactions of the 16,000 sessions, 14,000 dropped off within that initial. So only 2,000 went on to visit a second page. And then with the first interaction, 2,000 of those sessions, another 1.18 dropped off. So that goes back to the idea that most people are not visiting more than 2 pages. But we can see, which of those pages people are landing on and then what their next route that they're taking. So from the homepage, we can see that this blog post on some 5 common tips is actually one of the most common next visited pages versus a portfolio versus other, blog content. So from the behavior flow, remember the other one I said that was really important to look at is what's called site content. So under site content, if you select all pages, you're going to see for every page of your website, and again, you might need to tab down in the bottom right-hand corner, how they rank against each other. So what are your top most visited pages and how long are people spending on them? So you might want to look and see how long are people on your homepage versus your about page versus your services page or your philosophy page. And maybe, you're getting a ton of people that are landing on your about page, but they're only spending 30 seconds on it, and that's not enough. So you need to go back and change something up on your bio page to make it more engaging. If I saw that, your top visited page after your homepage was your about page, but people were dropping off after that interaction, maybe I'd add a call to action or a link to another blog post, learn the 5 biggest mistakes I've made in my own budgeting over time, or just something really interesting and compelling that's going to make somebody want to click and keep reading about you. If your bio just says, I graduated from school in 1999, I was a financial planner, I did this, I did that, it's not as engaging or as exciting, and you're less likely to captivate people to keep reading. So, thinking about the flow that people are taking through the site and how you want them to navigate through it is really important. If your site if any page kind of becomes a dead end where people have to backtrack to go back to the home page, that's often where you'll see a drop off. So at the bottom of your about page, it should say something like read more about my services, and then they can click on that to go to the next page, or sign up for a 401k portfolio review at the bottom of the services page, so they take that next step. So constantly thinking about what do you want them to do next after they've finished on any one given page will help you understand, how to set those pages up so that you don't lose the traffic and people don't drop off. So, even here with 20/10, we can see that one of the other things I think is important is looking at what's called the exit number. So you can look at how many people exited from any one given page. So for us, our themes page, which is like our portfolio, saw one of our highest drop-offs. So once people had seen the work, they typically then were just getting in touch with us, which is fine and good. But for you might, see a lot of people dropping off and not completing any action, and that's where you'll want to make those changes. So you can also click on any one of those results, again, and look at another secondary dimension like we've always done. So if one of these was a blog post, let's say in your instance, so for here I have one of our blog posts, Succeeding on Facebook, 3 Simple Steps for Advisors. I can use, again, that secondary dimension to choose where people are finding that post. So for our blog post, we can see how much of it traffic was coming from social media, how much traffic was coming from direct hits, and how much was coming from organic search. So surprisingly, the vast majority of people finding this blog post are just doing a Google search and finding it. But they are also high bouncers. Whereas even though 4 of those people came from social media, they had a 0% bounce rate. So keeping those things in mind as you're looking at the data. And also, a lot of times, I'm sure this has happened to some of you, you'll share something on social and you'll see it got, 1,000 impressions, and that's great. But did anybody actually click on it? You can tell through looking at these metrics this way. So here's just an example of how one of you might use Google Analytics to track different things, right? So let's say you spend 5 hours each week writing 2 blog posts. One of them is on, general financial planning topics like budgeting or maybe college funding, just different things. And then one is always on market commentary. You're always going to share both of these posts in an email blast, and then you share them on social media. And you're finding, they feel like both of them are getting the same amount of traffic. The market commentary posts only take you 30 minutes to write, whereas the financial planning posts are taking you like 4.5 hours. So you can use Google Analytics to see, is it really worth your time to continue writing those financial planning posts? So first, what I would do is go in and look overall which are getting the most views, the market commentary or the general financial planning topics. So again, you would want to go to that behavior, and then you would look at all of the different pages, and then you can even do content drill down to find out exactly which pages are getting hit the most. And then you can see of those 2, which one is leading people to the secondary page that you want them to go to. So maybe you have a landing page called, 5 Simple Steps, and it's your download page. And so from every single market commentary and general financial planning blog post you do, you have a button that says, download my 5 tips for XYZ. You can track how many people started from each of the blog posts and ended up on that landing page, right? Because we can use those secondary dimensions to look at the landing page that they end up on. So maybe the market commentary is getting a lot of site visitors and the financial planning isn't getting as many, but the financial planning is seeing a lot more people end up on that landing page. So that's a lot more what we call conversions. So that would tell you that those financial planning posts are actually much more qualified prospects, even though you might not have as many of them. And then also, I would make sure I look at who's spending the longest on the site and how many pages are subsequently visiting from either of those entry points. So I put a couple links to some further resources that you can check out from our blog, or if you just go to our blog, blog.20over10.com, and search Google Analytics. We have checklists there that you can monitor your own analytics. We have a lot of the metrics we've talked about today, top questions we get asked, so you can use that to review your site. And I've also done a glossary here at the back with all of the different jargon that we went over and what it means, so that if you're going through your own, you can quickly reference that. It's very helpful. I also just wanted to mention, again, I said this at the beginning, if you email us, if you want a more specific report for your own business, you can email us and we will do a 1-hour consultation with you. And the way that it works is we you share, your login credentials or your analytics with us. There's a way you can do that via email. And then we'll pull your key data and analyze the results. And then we schedule a 1-hour review meeting to go over those points with you and compare them to others, advisors in a similar situation, and then send you suggested changes that you can then implement to increase your ranking. So again, if you have any questions, this is how to get in touch. If you're an existing 20/10 client who has questions about, is my Google Analytics installed? You can always go to your own website to see that under the account settings. But if you're not sure, please email support and we can double check for you. We're happy to do that to make sure that it is set up properly. And yeah, so now I will just go through the main questions that we have. Thank you all again so very much for joining us today. And again, this webinar has been recorded and we'll make sure that we get the recording out to everybody as a follow-up. Somebody asked about, I get a lot of hits from foreign countries. Many of them have very short times, like the amount of time on the page. So that's a great question. We actually have a whole post on our website about this called Google Analytics Referral Spam. So referral spam is the name for when somebody lands on your site, you'll see it listed as, Russia or somewhere overseas, and the amount of time they spend on the page is 0.0 seconds. Well, we know that that's spam because it's impossible for Google to register a visit as a visit if it's 0 seconds. So there are some, in the blog post that I'm referring to, we do give you some guidance on how you can remove the referral spam from your results. So if you want to go to our blog and just search the term Google Analytics Referral Spam, you can see how to do that, but it's harmless. It doesn't hurt your results or hurt your website in any way. Your website isn't going to rank lower for it. It's not actually affecting your SEO in any way. It's just affecting your Google Analytics. And really what it is these spammers have figured out a way to show up in your results that Google just can't figure really out at this point how to get rid of. Every time they get rid of one or two of them, 2 new ones pop up. And they really just ultimately want you to click on whatever link it is that it's showing up as. So if it's showing up as like freestockphotos.com, they want you to go to that. So they're going to get a boost in their own website traffic and make more money off ads and things. So don't worry about it. Don't click on it. You can remove it if you want to get better results. But typically, if you're filtering by the geographic location in which you're located, you're not going to have that spam in there. And then you can get a much more accurate depiction of your results. Let me just go through and see any other questions. If you have other questions, please, again, feel free to put them in. Let's just see. I think that's pretty much it in terms of the questions. Somebody asked about Google Analytics. Once it's installed, how long does it take? Once you've set it up, it'll start tracking your data within 24 hours. One thing I always caution, please, please, please don't start making changes to your website after 2 days of data. So if you get a website set up, you install analytics, and you look at your analytics for 7 days and you want to make changes, don't do it. Don't tempt yourself to do it. Just don't do it. You really need at least a month, if not 3 months, before you start making big drastic changes. I mean, obviously, if you don't see anybody from the state that you're in showing up on your website, then yes, that should be a change. But if you're thinking, oh, I'm not getting enough people on this blog post, or I'm not getting enough, clicks on this call to action, I want to change the whole design of my website, you won't have enough statistic behind you to make informed decisions. You really need 1 to 3 months of data before you can start making those changes. So keep that in mind. Any other questions? Somebody asked about the admin property settings and having a drop down with a lot of additional UA listings, and why is this? So it'll depend on the way your webmaster set up your results. So what this person is referring to, for those of you who are confused, if you recall back on this slide, we had the property, and then you can even see here, like, so it's the UA number, so that's the tracking number associated with that one website. and it's got this one list. If you're seeing a drop down with a lot of different UA listings, it means that you have more than one Google Analytics number tracking multiple pages. So you'll want to contact whoever your admin is who helped you set that up, and either ask them to consolidate if you only have one website, or they may have set it up that for a specific reason. So like if your blog is at a separate domain, so for 20 over 10, we have blog.20over10.com and then 20over10.com. So we have two different UA numbers for two different of those domains. Yours could be something similar. So you'd want to contact them and find out. And if there isn't a reason, then you absolutely want to consolidate, because you don't want multiple accounts tracking the same website. You should only have one UA number for your website. I got a question about the percentage of referral versus direct versus organic. That is a really good question, and typically what I like to say is, of course, again, it's all going to depend, but if you're, somebody who isn't getting any organic search results, you're really going to want to look at your SEO, because that is not good. If you're getting less than 15% of your site traffic from organic, that's terrible. If you're getting, 20 to 25, there's still a lot of room for improvement. You want to see that organic search be higher. So definitely take a look at how often, if you're based in Nashville, Tennessee, you'd want to make sure that Nashville, Tennessee is in your H1 and your H2 headings. Talk to whoever helps you with your website and figure out how to get that fixed. But that organic search, typically we'd like to see between 30 and 50% of your site traffic. And then referrals just going to depend. You want to build links over time. And that is going to hopefully increase as you blog more, or you get more people linking to your website. Somebody asked when we gave the average number, was that for a 30-day period? Yes. Thank you for helping me clarify that. The average numbers that we were showing in that slide was all for a 30-day period. What does the / mean, Kevin? That is just your homepage. So whenever you see just the / is the landing page that somebody's landed on, or the most visited page of your website, that's just your homepage. I think I showed you guys that. I can find the slide. Probably all the way at the back here. Here we go. So that first result where we just see that little /, that's just your homepage. So that would be somebody coming to just like 20over10.com. Somebody asked, does Google offer a keyword SEO report as a guide to get started? A really great tool you can use is Google's Keyword Planner. And I've put that here in the list of acquisition. If you're wanting to rank high for the search term financial planner Annapolis, Maryland, you can put that into Google's Keyword Planner, and it'll give you a list of other suggested searches people who search for that are also searching for, so that you can tailor the content on your site to include those different variations. So as you saw for 20over10, right, we had best financial advisor websites, best financial advisor websites 2016, financial planning websites, all these different variations. Google will actually give that to you via their keyword planner. So if you don't use that yet, that's a really great place to go to get that information. And as SEO reports, there's lots of places you can go to get an SEO report. HubSpot actually has a really great tool called the Website Grader. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but if you go to HubSpot.com, Website Grader, we actually get clients all the time who will find a site we've done and grade it, and then come to us and say, I really want to work with you guys because all of the sites I've done on HubSpot's SEO Grader have great scores, from you guys. So you can use that to grade your own website. Just keep in mind, some of the things they're going to report are a little bit iffy sometimes. And if you're getting that SEO Grader report from an SEO company, keep in mind that they're selling SEO services. So your website is almost always going to have all these flags on it of things you can improve because they want to sell you their services. So just keep that in mind with a grain of salt. I would say the Keyword Planner and HubSpot's Website Grader are the two I would recommend. Any other questions? We're almost at the top of the hour. Again, thank you all so much for joining us on this beautiful summer day. Appreciate your time and attentiveness and all the great questions. If there's certain topics that you would love for us to present on in the future in regarding SEO or Google Analytics, feel free to put them in the Q&A or the chat box, or email us. We're always looking for new ideas, and ultimately our goal is to keep all of our clients or just other advisors who are interested abreast of these topics and how they can manage their online presence. So please reach out and let us know. But with that, I think we'll sign off and look for the webinar recap to be emailed to you. And I hope you guys can all use it to improve your own website. So thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.